Turkey's president has warned that Ankara will soon wage fresh incursions in Syria as the country boosts its military presence along the border. Turkey strongly opposes the presence of Kurdish YPG militants in Syria, accusing the group of links with Kurdish militants in Turkey who have committed acts of terrorism. Political commentator Gordon Duff told us earlier that both the Syrian army and the YPG have agreed on joint operations to block Turkey from coming into Syria.
It's been 3 years since the U.S. began its military action against ISIS.
Since January, 80 ISIS leaders have been killed in Syria's Euphrates River Valley, U.S. officials tell Fox, all part of Defense Secretary Jim Mattis's plan to annihilate the terror group.
Overnight, that dramatic escalation in tensions with North Korea. Overnight, the regime defied President Trump with a new threat against the U.S. territory of Guam. That came just hours after the president warned that any new threats from North Korea would be met by fire and fury.
An attack or threat on Guam is a threat or attack on the United States.
This after that stunning warning from President Trump to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un yesterday.
He has been very threatening. Beyond a normal statement. And as I said, they will be met with fire, fury, and frankly power, the likes of which this world has never seen before.
The president was doing is sending a strong message to North Korea in language that Kim Jong-un would understand, because he doesn't seem to understand diplomatic language.
Guam, of course, is not the only island within striking distance of North Korea. Another potential target within Kim Jong-un's range is Hawaii.
It is Thursday, August 10th, and this is a Fox News alert. Brand new threats from North Korea, the rogue regime threatening to strike Guam at any moment. Korea releasing some chilling details of what it's calling an impending attack on Americans in Guam.
Erratic dictator Kim Jong-un seemingly unfazed by President Trump's threats of fire and fury, calling it, quote, a load of nonsense.
Tonight on this discussion on India-China, we have Atul, an Asia China correspondent for The Hindu. Atul, good evening. Thanks for joining us. How realistic is it that the two countries could go to war? I mean, what could happen with regards to the Doklam standoff?
Well, as you initially mentioned in the start of your bulletin, that the tensions are escalating.
And amid all the military rhetoric being talked about at present by the media and politicians, Google says searches of the term World War III have skyrocketed.
Because Trump bombed Syria, and people are afraid of what's going to happen next.
Terrorism, there's bombs, there's crazy things going on.
I think there is a certain whipping up of tensions. I don't know what it's connected to, but people know about it. And of course they're afraid.
Koreans, Russians, the Americans, and us.
Korea and China.
Syria.
I think Russia, China, the other BRICS countries, Syria, Iran, and probably Iraq will fight against the West, US, France, Great Britain, and some of their allies from the Gulf countries.
It seems people do not learn from history.
Nuclear weapons would mean the whole planet would suffer.
There's a general sense of alarm in the culture, which has been building for a long time.
I hope Allah will help us to avoid World War III, because if not only Syria, but the whole world will disappear.
Now, Catholic bishops are raising alarm over the growing cases of corruption allegations in the country. The bishops want graft cases investigated and concluded rapidly. Led by the chairman of the Bishops' Conference, Philip Panyolo, the clerics also warned politicians against early campaigns. They have also pronounced a countrywide ban on politicians campaigning in churches.
While dealing with corruption in the Vatican and clergy sexual abuse, Pope Francis says he is at peace with himself and not taking tranquilizing pills. According to a transcript published on Thursday, he told leaders of religious orders he met last November in the Vatican, "There is corruption in the Vatican, but I am at peace." According to the Jesuit journal Civiltà Cattolica, he said, "Never wash your hands of problems." International monitors have applauded the improved transparency in Vatican finances. Francis has received less praise, however, for his handling of the sexual abuse crisis that has plagued the Church for decades.
And while Catholics celebrate Pope Francis's recent visit to the U.S., members of Iglesia Ni Cristo, including those who have been expelled, held a peaceful protest in the San Francisco Bay Area against an alleged corruption case within their church. Romel Conclara has the story.
Expelled and current members of the Iglesia Ni Cristo gathered in front of the church's U.S. main office to protest what they call continued corruption by the church leadership. Over 50 people who protested at the San Francisco Bay Area headquarters on Sunday morning came as far from Southern California to add their voices to the growing choir of dissent.
What was the crime of the 54,559,615 babies? What were they guilty of? They were guilty of being found to be inconvenient by people who want to have sex without consequences. So, as I've said, the sexual revolution is drenched in the blood of innocent children, and that blood cries out for justice. So man's conscience, the laws of nature, and the laws of nature's God all agree. Abortion is murder.
Controversial preacher Gilbert Dare has been extradited to face child trafficking charges in Kenya. Dare arrived at 4 a.m. on Friday aboard a KQ flight. His appeal over the extradition request was rejected by a UK court. He has been on the list for most wanted persons for human trafficking since 2004.
The Education Secretary, Justine Greening, has said she will continue to champion the LGBT agenda for as long as she is in office. Her comments come as campaigners push secondary schools across England to affirm LGBT lifestyles and teach kids about homosexual practice. Miss Greening wrote of her desire to tackle what she called homophobic, biphobic and transphobic bullying in schools, and also highlighted the £3 million of taxpayer money allocated by ministers for pro-LGBT initiatives. Days later, Ruth Hunt, the chief executive for homosexual lobby group Stonewall, called for government guidance pushing LGBT issues and same-sex relationships in the forthcoming relationships and sex education subject.
One of the dire consequences of the cultural norming of transgenderism is the treatment of children who express confusion about their biological sex. At younger and younger ages, they are being encouraged to take part in what are called transition-affirming treatments that may be emotionally and physically damaging, and in some cases, irreversible. The evidence suggests that advocates of such treatments are more committed to a politically correct agenda than to science, or what is ultimately good for children. No rigorous scientific studies exist to show the long-term physical or psychological effects of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormone treatments on normally developing children. None. The rush by the media, cultural elites, and politically correct medical organizations to normalize and embrace transgenderism has no time for fact-finding. So much for science, and so much for having the best interest of children at heart. Parents, beware.
The late 20th century has seen a fantastic expansion of personal, sexual, and domestic liberties in the United States. In Not Just Roommates, Elizabeth H. Pleck explores the rise of cohabitation and the changing social norms that have allowed cohabitation to become the chosen lifestyle of more than 15 million Americans. Through in-depth research in written sources and interviews, Pleck shines a light on the emergence of cohabitation in American culture, its complex history, and its unpleasant realities in the present day.
Next tonight here, a warning for parents. At least 100 students in a small town linked to a massive school scandal, sharing explicit photos, images often hidden on their cell phones. Some teenagers now facing possible felony charges.
At Canyon City High School today, few want to talk. Anybody want to talk about what's going on in school? No. About a sexting scandal officials say involves at least 100 students. Authorities say teens swapped nude photos of each other like trading cards, hiding them in smartphone apps designed to look like regular calculators or even clocks.
When I ask my friends in law enforcement, what's the number one thing they see when they come to a distress call? And they all say the same thing. Violence due to the fallout of the sexual revolution. It's an adultery situation, it's some sexual sin that went crazy, it's some spat over a relationship of a sexual nature gone wrong. I had no idea. I thought it was bank robbery, jewelry heist. No, it's entangled human relationships that are often either sexually perverted or something has gone terribly wrong with the union, and often shorn completely from marriage.
In an article for The Telegraph, a man named Andre Spicer wrote about the experience of his 5-year-old daughter who tried to open a small lemonade stand in the family's East London neighborhood. After about 30 minutes, 4 local council enforcement officers stormed up to her little table. "Excuse me," one of the officers said as he switched on a portable camera attached to his vest. He then read a lengthy legal statement, the gist of which was that because his daughter didn't have a trading permit, she would be fined £195. Spicer later wrote, "My daughter burst into tears, repeating again and again, 'Have I done a bad thing?'" And before you're tempted to think such things only happen in Europe, I'll point out that this sort of thing happens all the time in the United States. Mowing the lawn for a neighbor, watching a friend's pet, helping a deaf person communicate, and many other simple tasks can result in sharp fines in many states if one accepts monetary compensation without the appropriate permit.
To that explosive sexual harassment lawsuit against one of New York's most famous hotels. 6 women who have worked at the plaza saying it has a, quote, toxic culture where women are treated as sexual objects.
About something happening at a Valley Middle School. Several students have been suspended after an organized fight ring was uncovered.
Well, Steve and Tricia, we got here just as school was getting out, and immediately parents and students knew exactly what we were talking about. They say that those pictures and videos have been making the rounds on Instagram and Snapchat, and those videos also getting into the hands of administrators who say this fight club has been going on for months.
Violence has broken out in Kenya following yesterday's general election after the leader of the opposition, Raila Odinga, said that the Electoral Commission's IT system had been hacked to manipulate results. Protests have been taking place in Nairobi despite Odinga calling for calm, and police fired shots to disperse opposition supporters in Kisumu. Fears are mounting that the country could once again descend into the chaos it saw in 2007, in which 1,100 Kenyans were killed following a disputed election.
Continuing coverage now of the new Navy Secretary's visit to Hampton Roads. He's talking about the controversy surrounding transgender service in the military. Secretary Richard Spencer spoke on the hot topic yesterday at Chambers Field during his first visit to Naval Station Norfolk. Today on Your Side's Chris Horn covered Spencer's visit. What else was he willing to say, Chris, in just his second week on the job?
Well, Laura, the former Marine helicopter pilot Spencer says he'll wait for orders on that topic, but Spencer also added his own philosophy about who should have an opportunity to serve their country.
Chanting white nationalists clash with students during torchlit march through UVA campus over removal of Confederate statue. Alt-right leader Jason Kessler led the torchlit march through the campus in Charlottesville, Virginia, Friday. Hundreds of white nationalists joined him in the march, which ended at the statue of Thomas Jefferson. The alt-right activists were heard chanting, "Jews will not replace yous" and "White Lives Matter." They clashed with University of Virginia students who held an anti-racist protest on the grounds.
The media and many critics are suggesting that President Trump's followers are these angry white supremacists. And what do you say? They're making like what happened in Charlottesville was a Trump rally. Go ahead.
Listen, President Trump followers consist of previous Democrats, people that used to be Democrats like us, and we switched our party to Republicans. That's right. Black people, white people, Asian people, Hispanic people, Americans. Do not tie our president and even the Republican Party to all of these hate groups. That's right. Because a lot of these hate groups, especially the KKK, was started by the Democrats. So do not tie this to the Republican Party, to the GOP, or the President of the United States.
That's right. Well, David Duke,
same script and different mask.
Yeah, David Duke said, you know, leader of the KKK, David Duke is saying, listen, you, Mr. President, we put you in power. He said that over the weekend. What are your thoughts there?
David Duke is nothing but a liar, and he is just seeking attention. And I am glad that the president did not mention his name. That's right. Everybody should silence themselves. Don't ever mention his name again. He's looking for attention. And remember, David Duke used to be what? A Democrat.
Can we talk about what's going on with you guys on YouTube? It sounds like they may be silencing you. That's what I think you guys are saying. They put a sort of a financial stranglehold on advertising on your Diamond and Silk videos. What's going on here?
Well, what happened the other day, they stopped the monetization of our videos that had been monetized for the past 2 years, stating that it's not suitable for all advertisers. And so we don't understand that. What are you talking about? Because a lot of things that we talk about is about the president, is about his agenda. You know, we are loyal supporters. So why are you stopping the monetization on our videos? We think that it is discrimination, it's bias, it's prejudice, because what you're saying is if you don't speak what I want you to speak, then I'm going to withhold from you monetary gain, I'm going to thumb down your video, and I'm going to make it where your subscribers will not be able to see your platform, and that's unfair.
And breach of contract.
That's called censorship, and you can't do that.